Sakto, pero
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Dead Dad, a horror podcast.
Brought to you by Big Baby Studios.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Dead Air, a horror podcast. This is the podcast where we try to prove that horror is for everyone and everyone has a favorite horror film. My name is Chris Costello and I'm one of your hosts. For this podcast, they call me actually they don't call me. I call myself the horror fanatic because I'm a big fan and that's my moniker for the show for marketing purposes. And I'm also joined by two of my other co-hosts. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. My name is Aaron Cristobal, and for the purpose of this podcast, I am the horror fan who is not well-versed in deep film theory and such, unlike my two other co-hosts. So I will be the one to make it so that people like me can enjoy this podcast and not be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that this was the shot used in... And we have... another co-host here, of course, who has changed his image throughout the course of the show.
Yes. Hello, I am Miguel. Originally, I am here to fulfill the trope of the scaredy cat. But parang namanhid na ako after all the horror shows you guys have put me through. So I'm here as a clear-eyed film fan. who still won't watch The Conjuring. I think that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. Even Miguel has his limits. Yeah, but actually no, he has a lot of limits. But so we're joined today by a very good friend. So this is gonna be a fun episode. He's a music video director. He's a filmmaker, and he's a small businessman, but not like tiny, like small. But he has a very nice
not
small
freaky
business.
Small.
No. But he has a pretty cool business that I want to visit to someday. So please welcome King Palisoc on the podcast.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Wala akong alam about
Thanks for
horror,
saying
but
yes.
but yeah, seriously, like sobra akong parang when Maui asked me to think of a film, parang wala akong like deep history of horror, but I'll see what I can do with whatever I have.
That's very interesting, King, because this is the first time I've heard a director na walang horror ambitions. Alam mo, like parang like a lot of the parang a lot of the filmmakers parang meron silang deep-seated parang parang I do want to scare people, or like that's something I want to try. Yeah.
Right.
You're so mellow. I'm so relieved.
Although I was supposed to make a horror film.
Yes.
And then actually technically my first film had like horror elements to it.
Yeah.
So so meron naman but it's not, hindi siya parang like I want to be the next Wes Craven or the but so we can talk about that later.
Yeah, that's gonna be super fun. That's actually one of the reasons why you're perfect for the show. It's not just because you're a director and you're in prod. It's not just because you have kind of dabbled in horror and you kind of made a thriller / horror. But it's also because you're not the biggest fan of the genre, and we love to hear that opposing view.
Okay. You can sit beside me, King.
Okay. So hindi lahat ng guests super horror
No, we've had a lot na actually actively don't like.
Okay. Hindi naman ako actively don't like.
Yeah.
It's just that parang hindi lang kasing lalim siguro ni Chris or ni
Miguel
Ramon
right
siguro
now.
or Miguel.
Yes, Ramon. A deep dive,
Yeah, I was listening to the Ramon episode. Medyo
Which one? There were two.
I listened to the first one, the entire first part, and then like parts of the second one. So medyo
very deep.
Kailangan ba mag-print na?
Meron siyang outline.
Legit. Yeah, he had so much.
He was holding paper. Well, did you notice that in this scene?
Sobrang intense. Like Ramon, ano ba? Parang, nagano na rin ako ng aking notes. Oh my God.
Na pressure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Ayun. Okay, perfect. Let's kick off the episode. So usually, King, we start off by asking our guests, what is your horror origin story? So how did you first discover horror?
So I was thinking about that. Parang, so like I mentioned nga, hindi super lalim yung knowledge ko about horror, no? So it's not like, I remember a teacher back in college, si Andrew T, who's like, parang, well, at that time, whenever you see him come into class, parang you know he's a horror guy, no? Especially talagang all black and he knows his shit, no? So malayo ako sa ganong sa ganong klaseng fan, no? But for some reason I would associate horror with laser discs. I'm not sure why, pero a lot of the horror films I watched as a child were on laser discs. So Nightmare on Elm Street. There's this weird B movie that I watched called Slugs. So if you guys have seen that.
That sounds amazing. I haven't
It's such a small random film na para I wasn't even sure if I actually saw it until I researched like yesterday kung meron talagang movies about giant slugs attacking the city. So those were so I guess para it's not so much I don't know why I associated it with laser discs, pero para a lot of the horror films I watched were on laser discs. And like Child's Play and the like.
Mm-hmm.
Pero I think I need to also parang have a sort of disclaimer. For some reason, I do have a lot of parang mga memories na blocked or parang na I don't remember. So like for example, I would talk about my childhood, and I would only remember moments of it. As in, so that includes also the stuff that I've seen as a kid. No?
Sure.
And I think I'll try to connect it later.
Okay.
When we start talking about the movie and like my experience with it.
Okay.
And then pero yun, basically yun lang yung aking memory of horror.
I have a theory. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a theory lang. Why you remember it? You associate it with laser discs. Is it the size of the laser disc plus all the horror covers are so striking? That's just my theory.
Perhaps. Maybe. Kasi yung ang lalaki ng mga niya, di ba?
Yup.
And I guess at the time also, parang nung nagka-laser disc kami, siguro yung parents ko had a horror phase. So parang most of the stuff that they rented would be horror films and stuff. So yun lang naman.
So cool. So cool.
Was the movie that you chose for this evening a Laserdisc version, the one that you saw for the first time?
Ironically, no. I think this was, I saw this on, kasi parang this was much earlier than mga mga
1990.
Yeah, parang 90s, no? So I think when I watched this, I think this was still probably on a Betamax or on a VHS. So yeah, yun yun.
Grabe, Aaron, were you like 5 years old? Like 3?
1990, I was 4.
Wow.
I was 4. Which is probably why I didn't get to see this movie before. I mean, imagine me watching that at 4.
Yeah.
Jeez. So, I'm sorry. So, so King, what movie did you choose for us today?
So the movie I chose for us today is a film made in the 90s called Misery. So it was directed by Rob Reiner, starring Kathy Bates in an award-winning role, and James Caan.
James Caan.
So like to explain why or
sure. Or why you chose it?
But I remember actually, I think there was one post on the Facebook group of Dead Air, parang asked about like parang the first traumatic thing you've seen on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember posting Misery kasi yung Misery again parang blurred na yung memories ko, no? Pero when I pitched Misery to Maui, I thought I had seen the film shortly after having an operation, a leg operation, parang ganyan. So, but when I did the math, parang hindi yata nag-add up. Parang I got operated. I had the leg operation when I was maybe about 4 or 5. So that would make it mga 1988 or 89. And then Misery came out 1990. So probably I watched it mga years after na. Pero yung visual... pero yung ano kasi, parang medyo intense eh. Intense yung imagery in that film. And parang for some reason, I associated it with my experience na parang I thought I had seen it close, parang within a time period na magkalapit. So
Yeah. That is super interesting.
I know. And I'm sure it brought back memories of, oh my God, I was on a chair. If this happened to me, it would be so painful.
Pero yeah, parang when I mentioned it to Maui, like I said kanina, hindi ko masyadong naalala talaga yung film itself. No? Until, so I had to really rewatch it and, check if, parang is this really good? Is this a really good movie? Or parang, ano ba siya? And surprisingly, I think it still stands. No? So
it is good.
Medyo solid siyang thriller, horror. And I think also, it's the type of horror that I appreciate. It's the type of horror that I would probably even do if I have the chance to make. No? So yeah, that's the reason why I chose Misery. It has some weird impact when I watched it. But years later, after having seen it again, para I realized the craft or the way it was or the type of horror that it showed was something that para I would probably do kung gumawa ako ng horror, parang ganyan. So yeah.
So it's actually so stressful. I was texting the group chat earlier. More than getting scared, the whole time, I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. Yeah. Every new moment, now you think, oh my gosh, it's getting better. Oh, it just got worse. And then, oh no. Just that. So,
would you actually guys consider it as a horror or parang is it more a thriller or ano? Kasi parang yun, since hindi ko naman masyadong familiar yung would you guys consider it as a horror or is it really more closer to a thriller?
I would say it's still horror because it's horrifying. That iconic scene. The thing is, I knew about that scene even before watching the movie because it's very iconic. People reference it all the time. So I thought I would never have to see it, but then I had to watch it. Then I couldn't watch it.
It's still shocking, no?
The first hit. Yeah. I already stood up from my chair. The hobbling. I stood up from my chair. Then my roommate was like, "Why? What happened? What happened?" And then he rewinded it because he hasn't seen it. Also, he send that to me. Send that to me.
Send that to me. I love it.
I'll watch it. But it was so horrifying, and I think that's horror.
Yeah, so I absolutely consider it horror then for the exact same reasons, and also like just the themes. Hindi siya thriller na exciting thriller, you know what I mean? It's a stressful, horrifying thriller. The themes of, being held hostage for the entirety of the looming threat of death, and there really horrifying images. And most importantly, it was written by Stephen King. And so yeah. And actually, I want to say it's really funny. We've started this podcast almost half a year. We've had about almost 30 episodes. And we have publicly said, the three of us, that Stephen King was part of our... everyone's like, introduction to horror. Yeah. But no one has ever picked a horror movie related to the Stephen King universe until today.
Nice.
So this is the first Stephen King. Yeah. So that's really interesting. How about you, Miguel? Do you consider it horror?
Yes, because of like the situation he's put in. Parang that's a horrifying experience. Like parang to be super helpless and to be very vulnerable in that way, and to be at the hands of somebody who wields power, that can be a very horrifying experience. So for me, it kind of falls under it. And there's also the psychological aspect of it, which is pretty cool. Maybe this is a point where you test me.
Yes. So good. You know it.
Because King, since I'm just tell our guest, since I'm the person who's the scaredy cat, who's afraid of watching horror, this group will always test me and see if I actually watch the movie we're discussing by asking me to summarize it. So,
and the reason we do this is because our trust went down when he just refused to watch The Conjuring. He refused.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but
grabe.
at least I admitted it, diba? Like off the bat, guys, hindi ko kinaya. Like, first,
Look at this guy getting so huffy.
Oh, I admitted
I hate you all. Like,
Okay,
anyways,
okay.
fine, I'll
So you're gonna summarize it
Yeah, I'm gonna
without
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 reading Wikipedia,
reading
without re-
Wiki. Okay.
yeah,
okay.
or IMDb. So there's a famous author. He James, played wonderfully by James Caan, and he's
Paul Sheldon. That's his name.
Paul Sheldon. Yeah, that's his character's name, and he's famous. And he's like this. Parang he writes one hit after the other in terms of novels, but he also has a bit of angst kasi parang ayaw niya na yung sinusulat niya. That's a little underlying text. Like parang he feels like he's like a hack, and he wants to change the main character of his book, or who is named Misery, diba? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so every time he finishes a novel, he finishes it in some cabin in the woods in some upstate like in the country. And then, so when he finished this last novel of his, he was gonna drive the manuscript down to New York. But because he's in such an isolated place in a small town, upstate or wherever, na parang nag-snow pa, he loses control of his car and gets into an accident. And he's rescued by this lady who was once a nurse, played wonderfully, super great performance by Kathy Bates, who nurses him back to health in her own cabin, in her own isolated cabin. And turns out she's a fan, and it becomes this sort of obsessive thing over James Caan's character. And not just obsessive, parang she gets a kick out of terrorizing James Caan. Her mind goes between being this devoted fan to being this like terrorizing overlord of him. And then side story pa is that there's this wisecracking old town sheriff who I love. And kasi since he's a famous author, na-report na nawawala siya. So parang people have declared him dead and they've given up hope. But he's the guy who kind of still sort of chips, what's the expression for it? Like he sort of chips on the case. Parang tinatrabaho niya pa rin yung kaso until he figures something out about it. Yeah, I won't spoil the ending.
I enjoyed that, Miguel.
Thank you.
I just want to add lang.
And my job here is
okay. I just want to add just that was really well done, by the way. But also yung character ni Paul Sheldon kasi he's frustrated that he's being put in a box that he's nothing but a not just a hack writer, but he only writes romance novels. He only writes his misery stuff, and he wants to be taken seriously. So at the beginning of the book, the movie, well, and the book, because it's based on a book, no, is he finishes his first novel that isn't a misery book. And it's something that he wants to take be taken more seriously. So it's his great American novel, basically. And parang you really see yung if you guys follow Stephen King, he really puts his self into all of his books. And so it's a really unique view into like his thinking at the time, siguro, it's like he probably, he felt he's being typecast as just a horror writer. He can't be taken seriously. He only writes in that genre. And he has dabbled in a bunch of non-horror stuff as well. No? So I guess like it's a prevailing theme in his life now. He finds that about himself.
Did you read the book, Chris? Or
yeah.
Oh, okay. I haven't read the book, so it would have been interesting and also to talk about like the difference.
Super. It's actually very, very faithful. One of the biggest things that's different is there's no hobbling in the book.
Oh,
it's a chopping, diba?
It's a chopping. She chops off his foot, and then she cauterizes it with a blowtorch.
Oh,
amazing!
Wow.
Amazing! So the hobbling
na naging hotly contested yan, di ba? Parang kung gagawin talaga yan. So they ended up with just the hobbling.
The hobbling was actually the compromise. Parang so it's less
violent.
The movie would become less violent or less traumatic. They just chose to hobble.
But the scene became so iconic because it's still so traumatic. Grabe yung pagka-shoot ng scene.
Ganda na pagka-shoot eh.
Grabe.
And you really see it. It's graphic. You see it. I was...
Yeah, dude. Medyo crazy yun. Kasi when I was watching it kanina, as in, I had an image in my mind na nakita ko yung nabali or yung actual hobbling. but I wasn't sure until I watched it kanina. And then I saw the actual, like, it was a top shot eh. And then nakita mo talaga yung left foot niya na parang gumanon. Nagbend talaga. And yun yung super crazy kasi that was the same left foot na na-opera sa akin.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Why am I doing this to myself?
Oh, wow.
So,
and then akala mo tapos na, di ba? Then she goes to the other side and I'm like, oh my God,
almost
I can't.
done. Just
pero
one more.
Oh my God.
But I think there's so many good things about this film other than iconic scene na I feel parang either are forgotten or overshadowed by other great things. No? Kasi I mean, this film has so many good things going for it. Of course, the most obvious would be the acting. No,
yes.
Parang I think when people talk about Misery, parang you can't avoid not talking about the acting. No? Kasi it's, the performances. No? Kasi I was doing some research also after watching it. And I found out that this is the only Stephen King film that had won an Oscar for performance.
Yes.
So that was Kathy Bates. And of course, James Caan. So, but I also feel that the performance, because everyone parang all sort remembers the performance and that visual. I feel like parang ang dami ng may mga stuff na hindi rin na napansin. In terms of the craft and the story and what it could mean and what it represents and how it's still relevant now and in a sense. So I sort of listed also a bunch of things that I liked about the film and why I think it deserves more praise than it has now. So I mean the acting is super duper memorable. No, I mean I remember watching it when I was young, and I could not understand why Kathy Bates' character and was being like that. No, parang ang grabe yung switch niya from di ba? Parang yung unpredictability niya as a character. Yung parang on one end, you'd think she's the super caring na ayaw mag-curse na nurse, but and then all of a sudden bigla siyang sisigaw, and then the camera would move close to him, and then she'd go crazy, and parang at that time when I watched it, I was still young when I watched it, pero it was one of the rare parang performances na nakita ko yung parang range talaga eh. Yung range ng actress or ng actor in performing that role, no. Pero watching it again now, the way Kathy Bates handled the character, parang really felt like hindi siya two-dimensional na evil. Parang yung mga touches niya, even humor, diba? May mga touches of humor din yung film na parang that added a layer to the character and that made her a little more human, a little more grounded, and at the same time a lot more scary as a character. No? So I think yun yung one of the great things about the performance. I mean, not just because of her range, no, as an actor, but also how she used that range to give more complexity or depth to the Wilkes character.
Yeah, so, she's a super complex character. Apparently, she's one of Stephen King's most favorite characters that he's created. And also, he was so impressed with Kathy Bates that he started writing characters based on her. Because she's incredible, man. I mean, the character itself is really so complex. She's obviously bipolar, no? Si Anne Wilkes.
Yeah.
She switches. Like, there's this one scene where she's talking about, she looks so depressed. I don't know, late in the movie. I think when she's talking about
raining.
It was raining.
It's raining. And then she just looks so depressed and so different from how she was earlier. Like, grabe yung range ni Kathy Bates. Like, she can go from super sweet to sad to fucking manic to terrifying. Like, she went so in so many directions in this season, and that's kind of hard to pull off, no?
Of course.
So that's why she won the Oscar, I guess, and that was kind of a coup for horror fans because suddenly like someone in a horror film won an acting award.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was really
But also
cool.
James Caan's performance also, I feel...
He was underrated.
Exactly.
Kasi
diba?
You know why? Don't mean to interrupt you, King. Sorry, I got excited lang because like
sure.
he's like the exact opposite of her. Like she just looks so fucking terrifying, and he looks so scared. And when he looks like he's in pain, you really feel it. Like he really looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And so he really looks like he's in pain. Like I remember yung scene when the first time he tries to get off the bed to open the door.
Yes.
Parang yung first bagsak niya, parang na-feel mo talaga yung yung pain niya nung ano.
And then his legs folled. Parang you could feel the leg pain.
Yung parang may weight talaga yung legs niya, no? Parang every time he would drag, no? But also, even in the moments when the scene was really just small, parang yun nga yung napansin ko about his character, because nga 95% of the time he was just on the bed. Parang literally di siya maka-body acting masyado. Parang it gave him so many moments or opportunities to really to show nuance in his in performance, no? Yeah. And tsaka ang ganda ng contrast kasi si Kathy Bates parang medyo wild yung range ng niya, pero si James Caan parang talagang pinakita niya lang yung kung ano lang yung kailangan for the scene. And it like the way he performed his role, parang it felt really like someone na, parang mapaniniwalaan mo na ganun yung pinagdadaanan. So
yeah. I remember one part where I was like, oh, this guy's really good, was when she first showed her crazy side, and he was just like,
oh
shit.
Shit. You could hear him in his head. Oh, shit.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, akala ko, I was so worried na rewatching it na magiging yung parang medyo slow yung pag-intindi sa character, in the sense na parang hindi niya magigets until later on. Pero when I saw that scene,
alam mo na.
Alam na niya. And talagang yung behavior niya from that moment on.
Yeah.
Ano na talaga. So
that's when he starts plotting to escape. Parang when he realizes, oh shit, parang my life is in danger. And parang you can see him parang you can see his mind working na parang I have to act cool, I have to act nice, and I have to act beholden to this person. But when she's away, I have to find a way to escape. Parang may ganun. So, parang
saka mabot na yung point na parang yung wala na, yung lumipas na yung mga buwan. Tapos nagkumaway si from out.
Yeah,
and he goes like,
It's so good. It's so good.
Ganda ng chemistry nila. Ganda ng nila.
But sobrang, I was reading up on it. Si Kathy Bates pala is classically trained theater. Tapos si James Caan is very organic acting. So parang they'd have trouble now shooting kasi parang Kathy wanted to do rehearsals, and James was like, nah, let's just shoot it again. So they always had to have, there's that little tension na Rob Reiner, who I'm surprised was the director of this movie, parang he kind of worked it in pala, parang just let that build your resentment for him. Parang yung class. Galing.
Yeah.
Galing. And yun pala, I didn't realize this was I didn't know this was a Rob Reiner film. I didn't know at all. So when his name came out, like Rob Reiner, like when Harry met Sally, Rob Reiner, parang galing.
Stand By Me.
Two of the best Stephen King movies.
Yeah.
By Rob Reiner.
Apparently, siya pala yung mga best Stephen King movies niya. Galing.
Yeah. So,
it's him and si Frank Darabont who did Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and The Mist.
Right.
Mist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so acting was super great, no, and really memorable, and parang I would not fault people for saying it's the best because of the acting. But also, if you think about it, galing din ng craft or ng direction, the way the film was directed. So I was watching it again, and then parang for some reason, it did feel like watching a Hitchcock Ewan ko napansin nyo, parang,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
parang the way he mounted the scenes, or the way he used the camera work to add tension, or the use of how he used music and the lack of music to build tension. Parang it did feel like Hitchcockian and then when I researched after, para I just found out na talagang nag-research talaga siya, nag-deep dive pala talaga siya sa Hitchcock.
Shit, that's awesome.
To really get into the mind of like directing a
blocking
a film.
I mean, that's really great. Great insight, King. No, kasi Hitchcock really works with a lot of smaller spaces. Unlike like he has a few movies na like North by Northwest na super laki yung scale, but a lot of his stuff is like really small. Like
Rear Window.
My favorite. Yeah, exactly. And then, so, how do you make something that's set in a single room exciting?
Yeah, exactly.
There's the whole fucking that scene of him trying to get back into the bed, into his chair before Annie arrives the first time with the penguin and stuff. That was so exciting. That was super exciting. I think that sequence should be on par with like the iconic cobbling scene. It's such a great scene when you're talking about tension and pushing tension in a scene. So well done.
Actually, ang galing nung moment na, I really thought they were gonna pay off visually yung penguin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they never did. And I thought na hindi na siya ipipay off. Pero parang minention na lang na.
Minention lang.
Nakita ko na yun. Nakita ko na yun. Dinalaw mo yung penguin.
Galing.
So, a lot of other parang Hitchcock-esque parang executions, like the music and how kasi parang it feels like a very classic thriller horror with how it was mounted, but also with the music parang with the thing I noticed with horror is that parang sobrang ginagamit si music, si score, diba, to really scare you or shock you or whatever. Pero if you notice closely, you parang there are moments where the music would just disappear and then reappear only when needed. So like for example, that scene when you mentioned, Chris, na yung parang pabalik na si Kathy Bates from getting that paper, and then he was rushing. Parang doon lang ulit bumalik yung music. So parang what I got from that was parang he was using the music in such a way na it doesn't necessarily make, parang he doesn't add the music to make it more tense. Kasi the scene or the way it was shot and the way it was edited already makes it tense. No? But it does, parang what he does to the music is that he uses it to heighten the tension. No? Parang ganun yung
to take it up one more notch at the right time, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When she starts yelling, diba, it gets louder and louder.
Actually, about her voice, parang hindi ko nga sure kung parang may weird dinidistort ba yung voice niya pag tinataas yung boses niya. Kasi talaga, creepy talaga yung boses
niya.
Parang napopossess siya.
Parang nagkakaroon ng weird distortion or something. Pero the music really helped and the camera movement, I feel like it's very reminiscent of mga Hitchcock stuff. And especially how he would use the dolly to parang ang daming shots ni Kathy Bates na talagang sobrang lapit. Tapos sobrang under. Talagang awkward talaga. As in, very memeable but also very scary. As in,
si Barry Sonnenfeld pala yung
cinematographer. Yeah.
Damn. This guy went from DOP to director, no?
To Men in Black.
Yeah. Actually, one of the little comforting and quote-unquote cute things also about it is that Rob Reiner was, obviously channeling, like he was super self-aware and he was channeling Hitchcock. But and then during shooting, like he could be heard muttering to himself that like, who the fuck do you think you are, Hitchcock? Parang may mga attack self-doubt then like,
love it.
And like any creative, that's kind of comforting. Like, he made such an iconic movie, but in the midst of it, he was still feeling extreme
doubting himself.
Yeah.
Super cute though. So and overall the look of the film, I'm not sure if it's the 90s aesthetic or because parang dated na siya as a film. Pero parang overall, it kind of looks like a one of the covers of the Paul Sheldon. Ano.
Ah,
Parang yung ano niya eh. Parang, ewan ko kung if it was
yeah.
parang sadya na gano'n. Yung parang medyo subdued na parang halos bland. Na medyo cheesy at times. Neutrals
Yeah.
and ano. Pero yeah, it I don't know. So I don't know if it was intentional or it was because dated na yung film. Pero yeah, parang it doesn't look flashy. It doesn't look parang it's
Not-
like
not
it's trying to
glossy.
scare you visually.
Yes,
Parang
yes,
it's not,
yes.
parang,
It's simple, very simple.
oh, so yeah. So a lot of the things na I really appreciate, and at the same time I feel are the things that are parang overshadowed by
By the hobbling scene.
by the hobbling and by the performances, and
Yeah,
even in at the context of when it was released, no? Kasi I found out also that kasabay pala nito si Home Alone. So ano, so
Kaya
talagang,
same look.
same-ish look.
Snow movie.
No, so and at that time, number 1 si Home Alone. Si ano was number 2. Misery was number 2.
Oh,
So,
wow.
naging sleeper hit talaga siya.
If you could have two more different movies come out at the same time.
Yeah. So, yeah, but so far, yun yung mga stuff that I noticed in the parang overall craft and and how it was made, no. Pero parang as a horror, I feel that parang scary siya because it literally puts the character in the position na talagang literally wala siyang magagawa for the most
Yes.
part.
Literally, yeah.
Literally, like he can't do anything, no. So and it sort of simulates the experience as a viewer na parang when you watch a movie, na especially a horror movie, parang literally wala
You
ka
can,
rin,
yeah.
wow, literally
that's pretty cool.
wala ka rin magawa. And
Yeah, you're in your seat.
Yeah, except
Literally captive audience, parang ngayon.
Oh,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So parang it's really something na kaya for me visceral experience kasi parang nakaka-relate ka like physically kung ano yung napagdadaanan ng character. No? So,
Kaya ako na-stress.
yeah, very stressful. Oh, diba?
Oh,
I think at one point tumayo ako nagugas ako ng plato eh. Parang pause ko muna to.
Too much.
Yeah. Oh,
So, me and King, we're talking about Hitchcock and stuff, but we've also seen this movie before. How about
Yeah.
you guys, the two of you who watched it for the first time? How does it feel like not only watching for the first time, but also it's in a much older film? You know,
Aaron?
what are your thoughts?
what? It's really funny because we had a podcast episode where we watched a 2000s horror film. And I did not enjoy it because I enjoyed it at the time that I watched it. But then when I saw it again for the podcast, parang I didn't enjoy it so much. It was okay. It was okay.
Yeah.
But this one, parang it doesn't feel very 90s. Or if it does, parang sadya that it's the 90s. You know what I mean? Like how people revamp the 80s now. It felt like it could have been a movie like that na somebody wants to make the movie a 90s theme. So it still holds up. It's still terrifying. The scare tactics are effective as opposed to yung 2000s where the jump scares were for nothing sometimes. Yeah. So I feel like, okay, this will withstand the test of time, meaning kids now will watch that years later and still get scared. Not like the other movie that we watched. They'll probably just be jaded and think, oh,
got it.
That's scary. What's this?
Ako naman baliktad. Parang this was the first movie where, and this isn't the fault of the movie. This is the first movie na I wasn't scared. Like I was watching it, parang mas last lang ako at most. Yan. But kasi, sorry, so this is my first time, but I am conscious of what Misery is and what Misery is to film, as an iconic film and as even an iconic hobbling scene, parang alam ko na yun, parang I'm aware of it, and parang, so when I watched it, parang nothing about it surprised me now, because I only saw it now in 2021. Yeah. But meaning, I've seen this movie in different forms in movies that came after it, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Parang gano'n. So parang, but if I treat it as the sine qua non, the origin, parang, kapucha, if I saw this in 1990 when I was 11, parang my mind would explode. Parang, yeah.
Right.
You know what's really cool? And I forgot to say pala, one of the biggest departures from the book is the book kasi it cuts from present day and from excerpts from Misery's Return.
Oh, the book.
Yeah, the book that he's writing.
Oh.
Interesting.
It's really interesting. And then
That's so
like,
art.
the writing is so different. It's like super trashy and like really like and ridiculous. Like I don't know if you guys picked up on how he brought back Misery, because it starts off he kills off Misery, and that's what sets Annie Wilkes off when she finds out that her favorite fictional character was murdered or was killed off by her author. No?
Yeah.
And then so she makes sure that he writes a novel called Misery's Return, brings her back from the dead, and he has to do it properly. Like he has to explain why she because the book ended with her in the grave. So the new book has to start with her coming out of the grave. Like no cheating around it, no nothing. And it's so ridiculous, dude. It's like the story is like she was bitten by a bee. Yeah. And then it induced a coma, and then this coma. It's only like it affects a certain gene pool, and the grave digger who found her alive, parang realized that this happened once before in the past to like someone of noble descent. So therefore, that means Misery is of noble descent. So it's just so fucking trashy.
Yeah, she mentions this.
It's just so trashy. So it's so fun to kind of jump between the horror of Paul Sheldon, and then suddenly you're in the world of Misery Chastain.
Is it written in POV of Paul Sheldon?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Because that would be... because I was thinking that would be kind of cool, because at the end they hint at a non-fiction book of his of his experience, and if that was the book, if that was written down,
that would be super meta.
That would have been amazing.
Super meta.
Super good. So Chris, yung book would parang shift from the story of Paul Sheldon, and then yung
pages of Misery's Return.
Yeah.
Yo, I want to read it now.
Yeah, you can find it online. I'm sure.
In the book, Chris, did the sheriff play a big part?
Fuck, man. To be honest, it's been a while since I read the book.
Actually,
I don't think so. I think he's much bigger in the
movie.
Yeah.
Sa kanya ako na sad. Like
super, because you kind of fall in love with him. That's why he's such a great character, and then how his rapport with his wife.
Sila
flirty.
Sila yung dry humor. Parang flirty senior citizens. Tapos super cute. Dry humor. Sobrang cute naman. Tapos bilang, siya pa yung sorry, spoiler alert. Siya pa yung namatay.
That's why his death is so shocking.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh fuck! Like, not only do you think that he will save Paul Sheldon, but you also like really like the character.
And I wanted to ask you about that character. So, kung if yung ganung klaseng art, parang is it a horror trope, or is it something that was new when Misery came out at the time?
To be honest, I don't know, but he has kind of the exact same character in The Shining. See Dick O'Halloran, the black guy who tells Jack about The Shining. Exact same thing. He goes there to save them, and he gets killed. Parang ganun.
And parang, like, I don't know how it was for the Shining guy, but in this movie, parang in the beginning, when we first see this town sheriff, parang simple guy lang siya. Like, he's a bit of a joker. Parang, does this guy even take his job seriously? Because he's not only the town sheriff, he's also the town, etc., etc., etc. But he proves to be the competent one. He kind of figures it out.
Yeah.
Like, he figures out
by reading the Misery books.
By piecing things together. Like, he goes to the crash site and realizes now this guy's still alive. He doesn't buy the story that this guy's dead. So in his mind, the case is still active. And then he gets into it by reading the books. So he recognized a line in the book that his possible suspect also says. Like, so shit, he makes a connection. And then he goes to the...
That's a great scene.
It's a great scene. And he goes to the store, and then he asks about the suspect. And then when the store manager says, she's been buying
paper.
Lots of paper.
That's when it clicks. It's always like,
it's a very Silence of the Lamb. Yung parang pagpasok ni Jodie Foster sa bahay, parang nag-click, oh my God, I'm in the house of the fucking murderer. Parang yan. That's all.
Parang the way he downplays yung mga discoveries niya. Parang, nothing. Did Annie do something wrong? No.
Galing nga nun.
Yeah, and it's surprising also about that character is it really took a while before. Parang tagal nung ano niya. Kaya you'd really think that he would survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Hindi siya one-off. Like, he was there from the beginning and all the way to the very end.
So, talagang may invest ka sa kanya. So,
It was the only separate story arc. Diba?
yeah.
Yeah.
So parang si Mignac mentioned na he wasn't scared but he was stressed.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the reasons why I thought parang napaisip ako if this was really a horror or not.
Yes.
Kasi parang a lot of it was really stressful visually and pero hindi ko alam kung nakakatakot siya na I guess in the same way parang Get Out then like I remember watching it. It had a lot of stressful moments, pero I would think twice about considering it as a horror.
But there are a lot of creepy shots din kasi in Get Out that I think make it qualify for horror. Like even just seeing one of the girls by the window, it's a very creepy image. So I think
jarring.
I think things like that define what horror is.
Yeah, but so I was parang sort of trying to identify what makes it a horror if Misery is a horror, no. And then I realized I'm not sure if I'm accurate here, pero parang it's one of the does it feel like a precedent to body horror? Parang yung mga yung mga Saw or like mga Hostel na diba? I mean it's not hindi siya like 100% body horror, pero that
torture porn.
Diba?
Yeah.
So
that's a really good insight. I think you're right.
So it feels like a precedent to body horror. But I think what I liked about the use of parang physical horror or body horror is the fact na yung parang unlike the mga Saws and or the Hostels or the House of Waxes na parang yung you would understand why they did that, why she had the thing that she did, no. Parang it felt like it was part of her character to really debilitate si Paul Sheldon, no. So parang yung scene na yon, I would understand why the writer ba or si Stephen King ba yung nag-insist na ilagay yung scene na yon.
I'm not sure. I think it's probably Rob Reiner.
So
the hobbling? Yeah.
The hobbling. Parang I would understand why it had to be there. Kasi it really showed an insight into the character, parang how deranged the character is. And it wasn't just for the sake of scaring people off with a sledgehammer and a piece of wood, diba? So, yun.
And it was a big, you were already so hopeful by right before the hobbling that, okay, he has the knife. All right, he's practicing with the thing. Okay na to, he has a plan. You know what I mean? Like,
nothing works out.
You're cheering for his plan and then she just wakes him up in the middle of the night to do that. It killed your hope.
That's so right, because it happens twice. Like first he has the plan of drugging her. She spills everything. And then you're like, oh, the second time he's gonna make it work the second time. And then, nope.
Kaya you could tell I like the way that they made this writer just kind of like by the end of it, I don't care. That's the point that he got to.
Yeah.
If I die, I don't care. Basta this girl goes down. So he's jumping out of the wheelchair. You can see the desperation and just like, I got no more hope because the sheriff's dead. Like, wala na. So you felt that, and that's what saved him. To get to the bottom.
Because he was just like, wala na.
Maganda yung use of kasi di ba para he used the final pages or parang that was his
bargaining chip.
Bargaining chip, no. And how he used it as a way to parang turn it against her. Kasi another thing that I also noted here is the parang sobrang scary rin yung yung scene na when Kathy Bates did that burning scene when she had him burn the when she had him burn the
as a
book.
writer for you as a creator.
Exactly.
Ang sakit.
Ang sakit, diba? Tsaka na, talaga yun. So parang crazy talaga yung so that was one of the other things that I picked up na yung parang FOMO the movie rin to eh. Parang
right.
you lose your craft or you lose your art or you lose your humanity, diba? Parang sobrang nung scene na yun. Kaya when he did that to her at the end, it felt so rewarding.
Yeah.
He flipped it on her.
So yeah. One of the other things that I noted was also the horrors of uncertainty. Parang it feels like, especially the time when she... so when parang nung dinala yung typewriter and then parang you see a montage of him just typing and typing and typing
Yeah.
and typing and typing and typing.
Yeah.
Parang feeling mo, parang sa character niya, feeling niya, siguro nung time na nahuli siya, akala niya parang makakatakas siya in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it literally, parang lumipas talaga yung seasons. Parang, so, talagang din-drag out talaga yung Kaya nagulat ako na, nga pala, pinaabot pala to all the way till the end. Like ilang chapters yung nagawa.
And I mean, he had a broken foot that was healing na.
Yeah.
Matagal.
Correct.
His legs in the beginning were so bad and then, you could see he was getting better. So that took a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really scary.
Ang daming instances na or opportunities na they could have easily cut to the daughter or they could have cut to the agent na parang months later. Pero I really like the fact that they parang focus talagang zeroed in on these two characters. Parang hindi and of course the sheriff. Parang hindi sila cut away to other plots and so yeah, so yun. But the thing is, parang I feel like yung Misery, yung ending niya was really the one thing that really stuck to me, rewatching it, yung that scene when nakatakas na siya, parang i-meet niya ng agent niya, tapos present niya yung book niya, and then he starts seeing Anne Wilkes again. Yung na yun. Parang so what's very interesting or what I really liked about Misery as parang yung how it touches on all these types of horrors. It also touches on the horrors of trauma. Yung parang the idea na way past after this very scary or very traumatic experience in your life. 18 months later, 20 months later, parang nandyan pa rin siya sa'yo. So, and I feel like yung the really good horror films, at least to me, parang are the ones that really, yung parang medyo ganyan yung effect sa'yo. Parang nakaka-trauma sa'yo in a sense. So yun, which is also sort of connected to how, again, why I chose this film. Parang it did feel like when I was watching it again, of course, hindi naman siya nangyari within the same timeline. No? Pero parang when I was watching it, parang for some reason, na-associate ko siya with my experience when I was a kid of being operated and staying in the hospital for so long and stuff. No? So, yun. So I guess, parang kahit hindi sinasadya ng Misery or kahit hindi ko sinasadya, it feels like this film, parang meron kaming weird connection.
Yeah.
Because of I guess because of my experience and how the film was able to talk about the experience of on trauma and stuff. No, so
right.
Galing, interesting.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, I like that ending. Na it was a happy ending, but he was left with trauma. Parang happy ending, but shit.
Chris, I don't know if you can verify, but parang see an IMDb, our source, parang si Stephen King only later admitted na it also kinda related to his struggle with addiction or something like that. Parang ganon.
He always publicly talks about his addiction problems.
Yeah. So parang this was like that feeling of being trapped and being isolated. Those were the feelings he was sort of dealing with when he was heavy into his addiction. Galing din.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually funny. He has this habit of kind of repeating themes.
Yeah.
Like he does it a lot.
Okay.
He's got 2 books about haunted cars,
Mm.
mga just shit like that. And then he's got this, and he has another book called Lacey's story about a woman naman being kind of held hostage by a deranged lunatic. And there's also, I don't know, the movie came out about 4 years ago, Gerald's Game. That was also, she's stuck in a bed, she can't leave. So it's a lot of these repeating themes. No? And then surprisingly, and this one, like Misery, it's about a writer who gets into a car accident and then is in a wheelchair for a long time. He got hit by a car like about a decade ago, I think, and it really changed his outlook on life. He was about to retire from writing, and then and he just started writing some more in his recovery bed in his ICU. So parang it's just strange ano lang.
Nangyayari talaga, no?
Yeah.
Galing. Yeah. Super,
I mean, the best stuff usually really comes from truth. So if he's able to put any of his truth into it, that's why I like this so much.
I think that's why I am such a big Stephen King fan. It's really because I feel it like it's so truthful. So I think it's really great that you said that, Aaron, because that's exactly why I kind of like him. Because I feel like he doesn't lie. He's very open about everything. And then just the whole fact of repeating themes. That's why it kind of enforces your idea of who he is as a person, because these things matter to him. These things are what are constantly on his mind. And he's also really easy to read kasi,
he's such an easy read.
Galing niya. That's great. Super cool about him na whenever it just like flows out of him. It's kind of annoying when you read a Stephen King book because parang galing ng gagon pa. He just like, it's so effortless.
It's like George R. Martin will write in the span of 2 books. He will have written like 20 books. Alam mo, or like maybe even 25 or something. He's like 1 a year up to now. And,
but he also has I think he's just the type of artist that, how some people are like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Gawa lang ng gawa. Create.
Yes.
Because he has
agree.
He's
got some
novels,
clunkers. Man, he's got like a lot of books and he actually publicly admitted that he just doesn't even remember writing because he was so high.
Ang galing.
So it's that practice na parang, all right, I can write 20 books right now because I've been doing this. I'm just gonna keep doing and doing and doing. So I admire that. Sipag. Good job.
Super sipag.
Pero Chris, yung ano niya, yung so hindi kasi ako super Stephen King, like I'm not really knowledgeable about his stuff, no. Pero in terms of the type of horror that he does, is it really parang a lot of it is very personal, but also yung parang malawak din kasi yung range ng ng horror niya.
Yeah.
Parang may supernatural pero merong misery and then merong
Stand by Me.
Okay.
He's done aliens, he's done werewolves, he's done vampires, all of that stuff, ghosts and everything. But a lot of it is really, with the best horror stories, the horror lies in man.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's always the human aspect. It's the scary part.
Exactly.
It's not not the monster. It's the human. That's worse.
Exactly. Kaya for me, I guess the reason why I'm not a big I'm not super big into horror is because a lot of the horror stuff that I see, mga ghost or supernatural, parang hindi ako masyadong natatakot. Talaga, I think it's really people really scare me. Yun talagang It's the type of horror that really scares me. Kaya I think Misery is
your jam.
Is my type.
If that is, man, I'll give you a bunch of movies that I think you'll really like. Before I forget, there is a show called Castle Rock. It's basically based on Stephen King's universe because he has this fake town called Bangor, Maine, or Castle Rock. And then a lot of his stories happened there. So a TV show came out a few years ago, produced by J.J. Abrams, called Castle Rock. It's on 2 seasons. It's canceled now, but the second season is fantastic. And it's because it's the origin story of Annie Wilkes. And she's played by Lizzie Kaplan, who is incredible. Like, oh man, after this episode, I'm going to show you guys a clip of her acting basically acting like Kathy Bates.
Yeah.
And Kathy Bates loved her so much. Like, she thinks it's a flawless performance. She's so good. Anyway, that's really good. So that's one thing. And then I also wanted to show you guys something else because I saw this watching the movie last night. It's hilarious. It's so funny. I had to stop the movie because I was so curious. He opens his page, the page of his masterpiece at the beginning. You know what it is?
No.
What?
It's a review of Say Anything by Cameron Crowe.
Ito?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I was thinking about screenshotting this.
It's a review of Say Anything. It's so bizarre.
It is.
It's so bizarre. Yeah, so for those listening and can't see it, I took a screenshot of one page from the magnum opus of Paul Sheldon, and it's a movie review of Cameron Crowe's Say Anything.
That's so strange.
So strange. But yeah. So damn, that was a really nice discourse into Misery.
Yeah, I really liked the movie. I really did.
I liked how it looks like everyone is really into it. I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm glad it still holds up.
Yeah.
How are you doing, King? It's not. I know for everyone who's listening, King is a director, but he's not based in Manila now. We actually got him to do Zoom directing, and he's done that quite a few times. So it's pretty interesting how people have adapted during this pandemic. So,
weird no.
Aside from directing music videos via Zoom, King, how have you been doing this whole time?
Good. No, we've. Well, other than doing remote directing stuff, no, I'm slowly starting this coffee thingy.
Yes.
It's called Matchstick and Company. My wife is cheering. Yun yung aming pet project ngayon. Yun yung aming pet project ngayon. So, ano lang siya. It's just it was born out of necessity. We were here in Leyte in June, and we at that time we couldn't find good coffee in Tacloban, so we had to source pa from Cebu or Manila and stuff. And then parang we just thought maybe we should try roasting our own coffee. And then luckily we have a partner who is a roaster. He's also from Leyte, and then he worked in Cebu, and then things fell into place, and then yun yung aking passion project na yun, outside of the prod life.
Awesome. So, I must say, the photos of your coffee place makes it look so quaint.
Thanks. Dude. Ayun lang talaga yung kung pwede lang lumipad na yung mga tao.
Oo nga eh.
May chance bang umabot sa Manila yan?
I mean, I could bring over some beans.
No, I mean like a Manila branch or something. Sobrang ang daming pop-ups ngayon. Well, because of the pandemic, and then because people started up biking, parang all these little roadside coffee shops open. Yeah, and then parang nagiging semi-permanent na, and then it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Oo nga, dami ko nga nakita mga coffee stuff na. So yeah, it's cool. It's something. Parang it's refreshing for me because like I guess. Parang for the most part of my like professional life, yung talagang prod lang yung iniisip ko. And then when the pandemic happened, parang it sort of opened me up to another interesting world, which is coffee. So so I'm super enjoying it now.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So usually, King, we end the episode with everybody saying something like a last word thing about the movie. So we're going to do that. We'll have you go last. So does Miguel, do you want to go first?
Oh, shit.
Last words.
Okay. Wait, I got caught off then. Sorry, I can start. Go. Okay. Sorry, I just have to gather my thoughts. Okay. I think I would have appreciated this movie more if I had seen it in the beginning, like when I started watching movies in the 1990s. Like, I think I would have loved to see this in the cinema. Not knowing that there would be other horror movies referencing it after, you know what I mean? I think it's super. Like even if I say that until now, galing pa rin ng performances ni Kathy Bates more parang above everybody else. But James Scott is also so good. And I guess it's also a tribute to the source material. Na the whole movie is a weird thing to say, but it's a very charming, charming.
It is.
Agree.
It's a very charming thriller, or parang yan. So I kind of like it that way.
Yeah. All right, I'll go next. I really enjoyed the movie. And what I like about it is it was also very clear on the setting as to how the sheriff was able to figure out that it was her. So it was, very small town, chismis kind of culture. You really saw that kind of culture there, which I found so interesting, showing you what life is like in some remote suburban area. So I liked that a lot. And it gave a lot of parang flavor to the movie that made it a little more scary, but also parang, that's never gonna happen to me. Yay! there's that relief. That's never gonna happen to me. Yeah, wala yan. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. That hobbling scene, I already knew. I knew about it because my mom and my family would talk about it all the time when I was a kid. And I always thought to myself, it's spoiled now, so I might as well not see it because that was the high point of the movie. But I'm glad that this podcast made me see it because it's worth it. And I'm gonna force my roommate to watch it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'll go. Directing. Thank you so much for choosing this film because not only is it a fantastic film, it's also our first film that's based on a work by Stephen King. He's actually kind of the reason why we created this podcast for a number of reasons. Also because I kind of ripped off the podcast format of this show called the King Cast, which is it's about Stephen King enthusiasts. Yeah, it's a very very that's basically the format of this. So yeah, but So I super love Misery. It's one of the best Stephen King adaptations, easily in the top 2 or 3. Not just because of the story, but obviously because of the acting and everyone involved in it. I have really good memories of watching this as a young kid, and so thankful that watching it again, I still love it. So yeah, I really think it's really timeless, and I'm totally gonna watch this again later on in the future, over and over. So thank you so much for choosing this, King.
Thank you.
How about you? What are your last thoughts on Misery?
So I'm glad to have seen this film again. It's a very, very underrated, I'd like to think. There's so many more gems in this film other than the acting and it being a Stephen King film and that iconic scene. Really worth checking out again or checking out if you haven't seen it. Because of the many, many layers that it gives you. But again, I think overall, after having talked about Stephen King and Misery and how he used it as a metaphor for a personal thing that he was going through and how it touches on trauma and human experience and stuff. No, parang I feel that horror films in general make a better experience, not just watching it, but like remembering it and thinking about it when the crafting behind it has a more intimate touch, or parang if the creator or the filmmaker finds a way to make it personal, parang with that, parang horror films become a little more special. Parang it feels a little more relatable, it feels more human, and that's the type of horror, I guess, that I'd love to see more of, and hopefully do someday pagka may pagkakataon. So
that's the kind of horror I want to see you do in the future, like a lot of times, King.
We'll see.
I have very high hopes, King. I want you to make like 12 horror movies
of the same thing. But thanks guys for having me. I enjoyed this. Super not into horror, but I'm glad to have shared some of the things. Pinagtatawanan ako ng asawa ko. Bakit? Alam ko na kasi si Kay, yung wife ko, likes parang sa kanya madali siya ma-stress about anything.
Yeah.
So pag action or like thriller or suspense, lahat yon horror na sa kanya. So, para like, for example,
Oh, wow.
Mission Impossible Fallout, horror na yan. So, sa tingin niya, love ko yung horror kasi lahat ng pinapanood ko na stressful horror.
Stressful horror.
What a very, very
I
broad
love it.
definition.
I love
yeah,
it.
thanks for having
Thank you.
me.
Thank you
I
so
enjoyed
much.
it.
Hope to see you soon, King, in real life. Either
Yeah,
there
Before
or
we end, King, do you want to plug something?
Yeah, I guess check out our coffee shop on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yes.
It's a weird thing to promote. But yeah, we have a coffee shop. It's called Matchstick and Company. You can find us on Facebook. We can ship out coffee beans if you need.
Yeah.
Wherever you are. We'll try to send it over. So
Awesome.
yeah.
I'm
Thank you.
definitely going to order.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks,
so
King.
much.
Thank you again,
so much.
Sakto, pero
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Brought to you by Big Baby Studios.